Let's go to Danny Dumaresque on line 1. Hello, sir.
Hello, Pete. How are you?
Not bad. High time. We had another chat. What's up?
Well, I mean, I've been embargoed, I guess, for the last few hours there, reading the latest report by the PUB consultant, Liberty Consulting. Mm-hmm. And this was a long-awaited report. Certainly, this is the first report that's been done by an independent company looking at what happened that caused the crisis in December and January this year. Mm-hmm. And as you remember, Ed Martin and then former Premier Dunnerdale finally came out of hiding and said to the people of the province in early January that our problems were being created by old equipment and an unexpected cold snap. And of course, I said completely different, and so did many other people who have been observers of our power system for some time. And so the report today is certainly a very clear vindication to what we have been saying, although I take no real comfort in that vindication because while that is the case, certainly it's alarming to know that this consultant has clearly seen enough to conclude that hydro has got a totally unacceptable high risk of blackouts for several years to come.
Really?
Yes, and in particular, what they've said is their first finding was that our problems were caused by a failure of hydro to complete recommended maintenance on equipment that failed. I mean, this is a serious damning indictment. And an example is that they did not do as they were told, and you shouldn't have to do it. It's just common sense. But there was just a lack of spare parts, for example, to the point where we lost 100 megawatts of power on Boxing Day because we didn't have a spare motor at Olyrood, and that is what triggered the rolling blackouts. So what they're saying is that they have seen enough to conclude that there was a clear failure on hydro to complete recommended maintenance on equipment which failed. It had nothing to do with the weather, it had nothing to do with the age of the equipment, it had everything to do with the fact that hydro didn't do its proper planning, a terrible planning process, and it just wasn't prepared, and it did not put in place the rigorous maintenance schedule to have its assets ready by December 1st of any given year to meet the always reoccurring winter demand for peak power.
So, Danny, this statement or this stance, this finding is unequivocal. It states directly that this was essentially the cause and the reason for the blackouts?
That is the verbatim that I just read,
okay.
That they were caused by a failure of hydro to complete recommended maintenance on equipment which failed. I don't know how much clearer people can get, and it concluded certainly other examples of where poor planning was not being followed, and what they said as well is that in order to avoid blackouts this coming winter, we must have new generation in place by December the 1st, and I don't believe that that is possible simply because, again, because of poor planning by hydro. They are now coming and trying to hold a gun to the head of the PUB and saying we need to have a blank check to bring in 100 megawatts of used generation by the end of the year. And certainly nobody can be expected to just give a blank check to anybody, and that's why the PUB has now put a process in place. On Monday we'll see what exactly will happen pertaining to that application for 100 megawatts of power, but we're talking well over $100 million, and we better know that we're getting it right. But as I said earlier, the other recommendation or the other observation by this consulting group, which is certainly very reputable, having done work in 30 other United States and for 3 other provinces in Canada. They know what they're doing, and they also made a startling observation, in my view, that hydro is now lacking the skilled and experience over there to continue to do his job.
They said that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Danny, given that Hydro has said they need more generation, a $100 million bill for that if it goes through, that they have to invest in maintaining what they have and bringing up to scratch what they have. Given that we understand Holyrood is not going away, it's going to be required for backup for some time to come, and we're going to be looking after that and the new source of power, Muskrat Falls. Does this all start to factor in the calculation for how Muskrat Falls came to be seen as the lowest cost option?
No, absolutely not, because, I always maintain, and I made my presentation in 2011 to the PUB, that there was never a proper accommodation to the PUB to look at least cost power, because least cost power, to me, was to find a way to get us to 2041, or earlier, if we could go and make an agreement with Quebec, which I think everybody would conclude is reasonable. Mm-hmm. So all we had to do was find our least way to get to in the mid-30s, some 20 years from now, and that we would be able to then get the zero-cost power back to the island as required. Yeah,
we would still need the transmission system to get that down here for use, right?
Yes, of course, but the problem we have right now, which is identified in this report, is that at the present time going forward, we need two things. We need new generation being added, and we need money to be able to put those two things in place. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what has now happened because of Muskrat Falls, our treasury has been emptied. Our $2.5 billion that we add there to do proper planning, to build the third line from the central into Western Avalon and add new generation as it was deemed appropriate. We just don't have the money now to do it, and it puts us in a really precarious position that we should never be in. And unfortunately, I believe this is only the tip of the iceberg as we continue to see overruns and delays in Muskrat. And the bottom line is there, Pete, is that right now, as this consultant concludes, we are going to have an unacceptably high risk, even if we put in that other 100 megawatts of generation, of high risk of rolling blackouts for several years to come. And as you know, Nalcor has already told the PUB that the first 3 or 4 years of Muskrat power is unreliable. So we have now got to confront the reality that we have to go out and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to prepare, whether it's a refurbished Holyrood or some other generation, for at least 8 years, because at this stage we know it's not going to be available until at least 2018, and then there's 3 or 4 years after that we got to prepare for. So, it's a damning indictment on Hydro, and certainly not one that a lot of people didn't say was actually existing. But here we have today a very clear conclusion reached by people who certainly have no agenda other than to do due diligence and call it as it sees it.
And Danny, is this report something you're privy to because of your interviewer status, or is it available to the public?
I was privy to it as in my capacity as an intervener for a couple of hours before it was released to the public, I guess a half hour ago. Okay. So, yeah, I did have a chance to review it earlier along with the other interveners, and certainly I was looking forward to it, knowing the kinds of things that they must be looking at, and I was wondering if they would reach similar conclusions that I had reached after the last 8 or 10 weeks of perusing thousands of pages of information, and certainly that's exactly what did happen. They concluded this was not bad weather, it was not old equipment, it was just falling down on the job, and what this all boils down to, in my opinion, Pete, is that this is ample proof for this government and the minister responsible to wake up and realize that Newfoundland Hydro should be taken away from Nalcor and be put in back where it was before as a sole mandated power corporation to get the least cost, most reliable power for the people of the province, and not be over there under the guise and a subsidiary of Nalcor when the preoccupation of Nalcor is oil and gas and obviously Muskrat Falls. That is where there is a fundamental breakdown, and, I can only tell you what I've seen before, that for years, and for 30-some years, there was never the kinds of problems with hydro when it was standing on its own and had its own CEO as we have today, since it's been under the control of Nalcor, who, in my opinion, have neglected it to the point where it has failed.
Okay. All right, we're going to hear an awful lot more about this, I guess, if it has been released to the public. So I thank you for kicking it off today, and we'll talk again about it for sure between us as well.
Anytime.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All the best.
Bye.
Danny Dumaresque there, keeping his fingers on the pulse of all things Nalcor and power related in the province.